Hello, everyone. My name is Anubha Gaur, and I'm an executive director at Quest Diagnostic. I am leading platform engineering teams. We are driving the cloud innovations through all the digital services, DevSecOps, SRE, quality engineering, and then managing the API management program. I am passionate about API product and cloud optimization. Why? Because it is amazing that how it is driving the business growth and bringing the operational efficiencies. Whenever time permits, I love to read and explore new things, and you can find me at LinkedIn. With that, I would like to share anyone who is new to Quest that Quest is a leading provider in the diagnostic services. We are serving more than 50% of US professional hospitals and physicians. One of the strengths that here is the data. We have a more than 60 billion patients data points. And then we are serving more than one third of US adult population. One interesting data point that I would like to share that in the healthcare spending of the 2 and 3% comes from the diagnostic services, but 75% of decision coming from diagnostic results. So I am the reason that I am proud to be part of this company because every day we are making a profound impact on the patient's life. So today I will be covering the power of generative AI in the API product testings and validations. So I will cover high-level API product lifecycle. Then I will go into the API product testing, what their current challenges are, what the process that we are using in Quest. Then I will talk about high level what is generative AI and the approach that we use to adopt Gen AI at the enterprise company. So it is not just about the API product testing, but it is the approach that we have used to start this initiative. I will talk about what kind of the use cases that we did for this API product testing, what the challenges and considerations that we have implemented, and then finally we'll end with the key takeaways and benefits. Sounds like a plan? Great. So this is the high level API product lifecycle. The idea is that we want to bring the API product first, bringing the API mindset within the enterprise level. Hence, is starting with the opportunity model, thinking as an API product, looking the evaluations, taking the business input, preparing the roadmap, and then doing the prioritization. Then after that, the API product team, they design this API more as a product mindset, identify the discovery, discovering that where the dependencies are, what are the complexities are, right? Should we create a new API, means the new product, and what are we building? Is it something is already available? And that's where the API discovery comes into this picture. Understand the data sources, where it is coming. And once this API product design is ready, that's the development team. They see whether we should create a new one or we should extend, means we should update. The security and compliance team, they review, is there any PI informations? And then development team, they build the API. Once this API build is done, right, and that's where the whole part of my talk is API testing, which is marked as red here. They identify the key functional areas, the dependencies, which means creating the test case creations, the functional testing, right, the executions, preparing the test environment, creating the test data, or if the backend is not available, preparing the service virtualizations, right? And then finally, the API performance, which is the important piece. So once the API testing is done, then the next step is now is ready to go, means ready to release. There are the chances that sometimes they look at that should be retire or should be what the release looks like. But it is a more as a collaborative effort with the backend systems, API development team, our consumers. All see that, okay, this is the one that is going to be released for our API consumer or our API internal developer, private API, public API, third parties API, different type of the APIs, as you can see on the tail end on the right hand side. And that's where we release the API. So this is a big picture for the whole API product lifecycle, starting from ideation and then finally come to the release. So based on this picture, it's now you would understand that what are the challenges that we face in the API product testing. API is increasing because it's bringing more complexity. Multiple dependencies are, right? And then working with the consumers, what their challenges are. So understand their complexity, create more efforts on the API product testing side. Sometimes, because you are creating the manual test creations, lot of manual efforts, and it create error prone, and then means it's hard to identify the edge cases. One thing that once you have the test cases there, but the interesting challenge comes creating the test data, preparing the API documentations, and it is a manual effort, and which is require time, and hence once is ready to release that part, that's where the testing team, they don't have enough time to do the comprehensive testing, the end-to-end level testing, don't have enough time to do the proper API performance validations. These are the high level challenges that we identify during the API product testing. So the next question is that what are the process that we were using to identify, okay, where are the ones where the manual efforts are there, which are the one that is creating more time, how do we improve our quality engineers productivity. And this is a very high level process diagram. I am sure that you might be using in your area, maybe in a different way or most of the similar way. It is a standard API testing process, creating the API product specifications, understand the features, the stories, right? And then we create the test cases. Our test cases are in Gherkin format. And then based on this, the test cases create the environment. Backend is not available, then create the service virtualization, mock services, creating the test data generations, execution of the test cases, bug is there, fix it, right? Log it, document it. Very high level. Typical testing process. Okay, so in that process, the gaps that we have seen at the enterprise level, that every team was creating the test data, test case in a different way. A lot of inconsistencies plus manual efforts. Test cases were complex and hence is taking extensive effort to create the test data. It was the inconsistency in terms of the execution also, that one team was executing their API testing in a one way, another team was doing in a different way, and there was no monitoring in terms of how much test case coverage is there. So which means that, like as an example, some teams are doing work around the API test documentation and some teams are not doing this. So we identify in inefficiencies in the process that I just highlighted. Now I'm going to have a pause because I'm going to switch the gear on the generative AI, how the power of Gen AI is actually helped us to streamline this testing process. So before I get into the details, I would like to share what is the generative AI. I'm assuming you must have already known because even during the conference, one day was dedicated on generative AI. So yes, it is a model, LLM model, which generate the human-like content. And in our case, It actually can create the test data generations. It can create the test cases. It can validate that. It's based on NLP and ML, right? So we already know that. But the things which I would like to focus is, what is the approach that we used to implement or adopt this generative AI? So these are the three areas, that is the AI governance, identify the use cases, and implement. And which is this three step? First one is AI governance. AI governance is not just is important only for API product test use cases that we use. It is at the enterprise level. When we started this AI initiatives, the important part is that have this governance model around it, which I will touch base. I will do a double click on this box in my next slide. But the high level was that it is the governance, so that the team, the at the enterprise level, team can make the right decision, have the define the policies, what are the SOPs are, and these approval is based on business objective, business goal, and it's then eventually helped us to secure the funding. The second step was, what is the criteria to identify the use cases? The criteria was then how the use cases are aligned to the business objective, how it's going to bring the business value. As an example, that repetitive task, right, where the major operational saving is there, small efforts but major ROI. Another example, engineering productivity, how to increase the engineer's productivity, and then where the customer pain points are, how the Gen AI can help us. And then final one, start small. Doesn't have to be the big bang, right? Start small, track it, the outcome, and then smart, showing the results. And those are the use cases, are important one and are easy to get the buy-in. The final one was the implementation approach. And for that one, it's important that people, process, and system comes, and then build the core engineering team who is focused there to implement those use cases, understand what is the POV, right? It was a time box implementations. For our example, in the API testing, that instead of solving the whole big process, identify the small areas where we can, show the immediate value with the time box initiatives, and then track the efficiencies. And this approach is important not just for the API testing use case, it was for the enterprise level initiative. Now I am going to double click on the AI governance, which is the important part, which is the council structure, that how this governance align to the business strategy. Start with the customer pain points, and start with the business objectives. AI sponsors from the top all the time it's available, because they are ensuring these initiatives are aligned to the business objectives. They are the one who is making sure the fund is secured for these use cases. And then the third pillar was the steering committee. The steering committee purpose is your compliance, security, enablement team, policy team, right? They all the part of this journey. And that is the whole purpose. As you can see, the benefit of this, then have the policies, right? We are a healthcare company. We want to make sure that we are aligned to the compliance and the risk management, ensuring that these fully documented. What is the communication plan? How are we going to train the teams? That is the whole part of the area falling under steering committee. So that is a high level idea on how we started this AI initiatives, what are the pillars were the part of this initiatives, and then why AI governance is important. Okay, so the next step is, then I covered the product life cycle. I talk about the API product process, right? And then how generative AI is important, and then how the approach that we used. Then, based on that approach, we identified the use cases where we saw that if we implement the Gen AI in these use cases, they are the small one, but it's going to improve quality engineers' productivity. It will help us to reduce the testing cycle time, and it is a small effort. It's not a big big bang. It is a small use cases so that we can do it in a time box manner, plus we can show the value. So starting the same is API specification to the test case data, validations, and then testing insights. So if you can see on the top, on the right hand side, the test cases was the one use case. How do we automate through the Gen AI? How do we automate the test cases? How do we create the dynamic data generations? And then execution. And then the one piece was absolutely missing was the how do we identify the defect proactively based on the data. So these are the use cases that we decided to implement, and here you go. So same process diagram which I was talking about, that our pipeline is on the GitHub CI/CD pipeline, right? Using the Copilot, and then using this Copilot, it was integrated with our product, with feeding the product API specifications, user stories, features, getting the context, and then it is helping us to create the test cases, which is the one area. It's actually help to create the test cases, identify the edges. The second area was creating the test data generations based on this, the same specifications, and then service virtualizations is actually helping to create the test data generation, and then executing the test cases. That's where we also used to the Gen AI to improve the execution part. And then based on this, it's actually started helping to create the good API product documentation, which was initially missing, because again, some testing team were doing a good job on creating the documentation, some teams were not, but it's actually bring the consistency and efficiencies within the organization. So these are the areas where we actually start leveraging the Gen AI, not in a big the whole process, the area where we can show the immediate value. The next one is, during this journey that we identify some challenges. As an example, one of the challenges that it was Copilot, if does not have enough context, then it was not creating the good quality of the test cases, because it was failing to understand the complete API context, which means then we start providing more details, accurate prompts. Team was trained more on the prompt engineering. Initially, it was not, but we start seeing the improvement when we provided more informations, documentations, right? Getting the better and quality test cases. Another area was since it is a high level of learning curve, because quality engineering team was transforming, and then we started the small core team who were trained on the prompt engineering, the Gen AI, right? So we actually have a proper training program so that we can onboard more quality engineers using those training practices and then full documentation. So it's actually helped us to speed up onboarding for the new team members, new quality engineers, and then adopting the Gen AI. The third thing that I would like to highlight, that we start seeing that engineers, they are having a over dependencies on the Copilot results, and they're not validating, because they're okay, the test case creation is done or the execution is done, right? The logic's not looking, and that was we start seeing a problem. So we asked everyone step back and then see that the use of the Gen AI is as an assistant, which means then the engineers, they have the domain knowledge, they understand the systems very well, so they should do the code review, start reminding the importance of the code review, and then checking what is the test cases looks good, especially for the critical and then complex area. And then final one was is actually help, because the code review in this doing it, but sometimes that the test cases or the execution or the test data generation was not aligned to the quest security and compliance standard. And that means then having a regular audit and then review to ensure that this outcome is aligned to the quest standard. These are the very high level challenges that we saw, and then these are the, I just shared how we remediated them. So what is our learning here? Okay, so the next one is, so what? Here you go. We saw the 30% productivity increase in the quality engineers, because we started with the baseline for the four test cases. Throughout this whole process, we saw the productivity increased. We saw the testing cycle time reduced, and with the better test cases, because now those test cases, they have some edge test cases which were not before. So we start seeing the better quality test cases, and it improved the testing documentations, because in the beginning there was so much inefficiencies, and then quality engineers, because of the limited time, they were missing or not doing the proper API documentations, but it's actually helped because now it was coming as a part of this whole process, which means then it helped to make and then switch from the QA more on the manual testing process to more on the engineering, quality engineering mindset. And then finally, it helped us to for the cost saving, because it reduced the resourcing efforts, which means the total cost of the testing services, we saw the saving from starting till end. So then now I would like to end this my presentation with the key takeaways, and I would suggest that AI governance, not just for this use case, even when you are in starting this initiative at the enterprise level, have this AI governance. This is essential. It's important to make this whole initiative successful, and add partner with your security compliance team, and then make them as a part of this journey, more as a shift left at the early stage, so that it will avoid the shadow IT experiment at the organization level. Yes, don't over rely on the API output. Do a proper documentation, do a proper review, and then make sure that it is aligned to the audit and risk management requirements. Start with a small so that you can see the results, because fail fast so that you can learn and adapt quickly, and you can show the value. And then finally, yes, generative AI is transforming API testing. So start small and then scale strategically so that you can deliver the high quality product with the confidence. So, with that, thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye bye.